Hello, this is the fifth part of the 1988 Toyota MR2 timing belt removal installation. My next step on this would be to reinstall the engine mount back in place, making sure that I put some thread lock on the threads so those bolts don't get loose eventually. To be able to align that bolt into the engine mount, it was necessary for me to lift up the engine just slightly with the floor jack and try to align that hole into that slot. I wanted to make sure that the belt tensioner was tight on the center nut. So that's why you see me tying that nut there before proceeding with the engine mount. The next part, I'll be reinstalling my ignition coil into the fender well. There's a little capacitor that goes right under the bolt where the ignition coil is. So I had to reroute that there in the upper section of the bracket. Since I got everything out, I wanted to take the distributor out to be able to replace the O-ring that goes under the distributor. It is very important when you replace an O-ring to put some engine oil around there to be able to guide that distributor in through the slot without binding. Also make sure that your markings are aligned. I put white out on the sides if you notice to be able to put it back together. Once I pushed in the distributor, make sure that the bottom base of the distributor is making contact with the bottom side of the block. Otherwise, when you start it up, that's going to jump out. It's going to break something there. Make sure it's flush with the engine block and distributor. I'm putting back the upper radiator hose right in the thermostat housing. Then I'm going to clamp it up again, double check everything is secured, and then I'm going to bolt that down to the fender well. Next, the coolant reservoir goes into that slot, right in between the engine block and the shock tower. I got all the components for the timing belt together, and I just want to go ahead and replace the valve cover gaskets. They were leaking a little bit on the sides there, so I'm just showing you how to take it out and put it back together. I'm pulling out the spark plug cables, and one of the things I recommend you doing is once you pull them out one at a time, label them either with whiteout or any markings that you can see. That way it gives you a better idea when putting it back together what goes where and where they go. From here on, just watch how I take those valve covers out. Pretty simple, just remove those the 10 millimeter nuts goes on top of the valve covers, and everything should be able to come out the way you see it on the video. When removing bolts, nuts, and washers, make sure any openings from the top of the engine block, like you see, like the spark plug hose, the oil filler cap is being removed. Make sure you cover those with a rag. I didn't do that because I guess I felt confident in myself in doing this. But I recommend you guys covering every hole that you see on top of the engine. After cleaning the valve covers and wiping off any excess amount of oil anywhere around the grooves, I went ahead and replaced my new gasket. Always put a little amount of RTV on the corners there so you'll have no leaks after you put it back together. Well, folks, this is it for video number 5. I'll be making my last video shortly.